Okay, so we're going to be breaking down some core nodes. And when I say core nodes, what we're going to be talking about are kind of just like workflow automation, data logic, flow nodes that don't utilize AI. So the first one that comes to mind that I am going to be using a lot here is set. So it's actually called edit fields. I always just call it set. And the purpose of this node is just to basically you can edit the fields. You can set things manually. You can set the field names. You can map different items. So as you can see here, we've got manual mapping or we've got JSON. So in this case, if we were to test this step, we're setting two fields here. And so just to understand basically how JSON structure works, it's very low code, but it may look a little intimidating. But if you want to start doing a lot of stuff with end-to-end, you're going to have to understand JSON structure, which is very simple. So basically, it's going to be key value pairs. So in this case, we have a key, which is my field one, and it equals, or its value is value. Similarly, with this key, which is called my field two, its value is one. And so the first thing to note is that we have different types of data coming through. This one is a string. And if you hear string, that just means a word. You know it's a string because it's in quotes. And here we have a number, which is just a number type variable. And so if you were to come over to schema on the right-hand side, you could see value is a string, or sorry, the key, the field called my field one is a string, and we see that there's a little a right here. So we see this a, and then we see that my field two is one, and it's a number because it was set to equal that pound sign. So number, string, and then you're also going to get objects, which will look like a little block where that little icon should be. So that's how you do JSON, but typically we're going to set with, I'm just going to do manual mapping. So as of now, there's no items in here. Let's say we wanted to set a field called query, and we wanted to just set this to hello. Hit test step, it's going to pop over here as hello in the table view. That's what it looks like. In JSON, it's going to look like this. As you remember, the key is query, the value is hello. And then, of course, you can set the data type here. So let's say we wanted to set that to a number. It wouldn't take hello. It can only take E. I'm typing, and it only grabs E because E is sort of like a number, in the sense of algebra. But sorry, I was trying to think of a number. So 74. Now we can set it to a number 74. It's coming through as a number. Let's say we wanted to go to a Boolean, which is going to be basically true or false. We've got an array, which is going to be basically a list of items. So we expected an array, but we got true because it's not actually coming through as a list. And then, like I said, we've got object, which we got true. So at some point, we'll break down these data types a little bit more. The point of this one is just to understand what this node is doing. So let's say, okay, here's a good example. So let's say what's coming through here is a execute workflow trigger. So if you remember from that previous module, an execute workflow trigger just means that we're going to be capturing data right here. We're going to be capturing information from a different workflow that's sending us information. Typically, this will be an agent that we create. One thing we're going to do real quick is just change the input data to accepting all data. And so typically when we're capturing information with this trigger, it's going to be an agent that's sending data to a tool that we created, which would be this workflow, and this process of whatever goes through this flow is the tool that we created. So like if you watched my, personal assistant video, we'd create an agent right here. This would be an email agent, but then we'd have the larger personal assistant agent call it. Or if you watched, the newsletter video with a team of research agents, and it was calling a tool called Tavily, we set up a different workflow where we had this trigger feed into a Tavily request that would then respond back to the agent. And so what I want to talk about real quick is two things. The first one is getting the data and then being able to set the fields, and then responding to an agent if that's how you called this tool in the first place. So what I'm doing now is just manually setting some information. So we're going to leave it as this. We're going to get name first step, or name first item, code one, name second item, code two. So we have two items coming out of this trigger. As you can see on the left side, two items. And what we're going to do is, let's say we wanted to set the, instead of calling it name, we wanted to call it identifier. And then what we could do is drag in this value. And so obviously if it goes green, if we have these two curly braces, it just means that it's calling a JavaScript variable. So right now, obviously what we typed in here is json.name. But what we're getting is result, which is the first item, as you can see from over here. So we can obviously do the drag and drop, which is super cool. But just so you can also understand, if we typed in 2 curly braces, we're going to get a list of options to pop up. You can see we have different functions. We can call it specific nodes. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do JSON because we're referencing what was just coming back right before this node. If you do JSON, it's going to be what's coming back right from here. I'll probably make a video about this kind of stuff more in depth. But anyways, now you can see we have an object. We have a pair of name and code. And so we wanted to specify something more specific. We'll put a period, and let's say we can either grab the code or the name. We're going to grab the name, and now we're getting first item. So now we're getting that data. And so let's say, we're grabbing from here. I don't know why it's waiting to execute. But anyways, let's stop this. And so we're grabbing that data. And now we have 2 items coming through here. Now, if we wanted to, respond to the agent, we're typically going to grab a set field again, manual map. We're going to name the field response, and then we want to drag over whatever we're sending to the agent. So let's say in this case, we want to just send over the identifier. Now, the agent that originally started this whole workflow by calling this trigger is going to be sitting and waiting for a field called response. And so then when we test this step, I can't click in there. When we test this step and we get hello. Okay, it's being weird because of the trigger. Anyways, we get the response over here, which says first item, second item. That is what is going to be sent over to the agent. So like I said, we'll have another video at some point that kind of breaks this process down more in depth. But this is how it's working. So that's the set field. It can be really handy if you just want to change the name of something, if you want to grab something, and then you're able to reference it later. Just because, as you can see, we're getting the same data. It's always first item, second item. But at here, we change it to identifier, and then here we change it to response. So that's all we really did here. But anyways, let's move on to the next core node.